Basically, my goal for today is to share some advice with you guys. Really, that's what I'm here to do. Over the years, I've given a lot of advice to teenagers, and sometimes they come back to me and say, "Wow, Mona, you were right." And I say, "Well, thank you for being so surprised." But there is one girl that I have to tell you, unfortunately, used to tell me, "Well, I don't take advice from anyone. My philosophy is I have to make my mistakes in order to learn from them. I have to make all the worst mistakes so that I can learn from them." And that was her philosophy. That was 10 years ago. And so she went ahead and went to college and decided she was going to dorm and be as far away from her family as possible. And unfortunately, she made a lot of mistakes. She wanted to party and to drink and do a lot of things that she shouldn't have done. And unfortunately, she failed herself right out of pharmacy school. And 10 years later, I still keep in touch with her. She told me, "Well, I'm working as a waitress, and I'm going to go back to college and start all over now." And I said, "Wow, you're going to start all over now at 28 years of age?" And she said, "Yes, I have no choice. I made a lot of mistakes in high school and college, and now I have to start college all the way from scratch." So my advice to you guys is really to be open-minded, to listen to advice from others. It's never a good idea to do what she did. Her philosophy was, let me jump in a lake and see how it feels like to drown. You don't want to be there. There's a lot of mistakes that you could avoid in life, and there are a lot of people who are going to try to help you to do that, okay? So on that note, let's just start talking together, and we're going to talk about why we aren't always the ladies we're supposed to be. Well, let's first ask ourselves, who are our role models? So who can tell me who this is? Why am I not surprised you guys all knew that? So apparently I thought it was Rihanna. I was corrected. It is Rihanna. Is that correct? Rihanna. So I did a little research on Rihanna. And these are the top 3 headlines I found on Rihanna. The first headline I found on her was, "Rihanna flips the bird as she flies high on holiday." For those of you guys who know that expression or don't know that expression, she decided to pose for a picture on vacation, unfortunately, with her middle fingers up. That was her picture. Okay, so that was the first headline. Second headline was, "Chris Brown and Rihanna spotted kissing in St. Tropez. Are they back on?" And that was just really shocking news to me because I'm sure you guys know the headlines way more than I do. And you guys know what happened with her and Chris Brown a few years back. They got into a very close relationship. They, were very... it was a very immature relationship, and Chris Brown, assaulted her, and he was arrested. And, basically now we're reading in the headlines that she's going back to the man that beat her. So I thought that was shocking and very disturbing. And the third headline that I found, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Rihanna parties too hard and breaks a toe." I didn't read the full story. All I found was she apparently got too drunk, and then I just didn't want to know anymore. So let's cross Rihanna off our list of role models. Deal? Okay. How about Miley Cyrus? Okay, Hannah Montana. Okay? Well, she used to be big for a time, right? She used to be real big. For a couple of years ago, Miley Cyrus was cute little Hannah Montana, and I used to go into Disney store and find all these cute little things of Hannah Montana. Unfortunately, when I decided to research what Hannah Montana is up to these days, I found something very disturbing. And unfortunately, this is what happens to some of these people who consider themselves role models. Unfortunately, this is what she's doing these days. Yes, shame on her. And she admitted it herself. She says, "I am not a good role model." She said it about herself. And I'm sorry, but if you are going to be a star, that you need to be a role model. But in any case, I think we've learned from just these 2 people, there are really not a lot of good role models out there. There aren't. If you're going to turn to the TV, you're going to turn to the media, there's not a lot of good role models out there. So my advice to you is we can do much better. We can do much, much better. What I want you to do is raise our expectation of ourselves. We need to raise our expectations of ourselves. That's the first thing, okay? For example, never, ever be in a bad relationship. Like we just saw with Rihanna, who went back to somebody who assaulted her. God values us so much. And I kind of like to ask myself, well, why don't we value ourselves as much as God values us? Why not? Why would we let ourselves be in that kind of relationship? I hope and pray that none of you are ever in that kind of relationship. But I want you guys to remember, you guys, let me ask you, do you think that guys are immature at this age? Yes, a resounding yes. I think it's unanimous. Guys are way too immature at the high school level, and we all know that. Second of all, girls have self-control, which boys absolutely don't. This is not a stereotype. This is a scientific fact. Scientific fact, okay? Guys are hormonal. They don't have self-control. Women do, okay? Third of all, girls have self-respect. I want you to have self-respect, which boys may or may not have, but unfortunately, a lot of them don't have. So I want you guys to remember this. So don't waste your time with relationships in high school. That's one of the pieces of advice I will give you, because they will take you absolutely nowhere. Guys are just way too immature, and I promise you, you will not meet a guy right now that you will marry. I promise you that. I will tell you guys a true story. We had a girl. She was good friends with a guy, best friends. And then, of course, guys can't seem to handle friendships, so they usually do what? They say, oh, let's be more than friends. So they decided to go out. This was, I believe, sophomore year of high school. They went out all through the rest of high school, all through the rest of college. They were engaged. They're like, see, we proved you guys wrong. Here we are. We're getting married, okay? This is 9 years later now. 9 years later, they're engaged. It's a few months before the wedding. She comes to me crying hysterically. I don't want to marry him. I said, what? Your wedding's in a few months. You've paid for the reception hall. What's going on? I don't have anything in common with him. I just realized that. They grew apart. They grew up. They grew up. She said, I like people. He doesn't. I like to go out. He doesn't. We are two different people right now. And unfortunately, she realized this 9 years later, just a few months before the wedding. You know, her parents were all, you know, both sets of parents were so upset that they broke it off. But, you know, thank God they broke it off in time. It's much better to realize that before the wedding than after. But my point is, girls, don't waste your time. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. Forget the media. That's the second piece of advice I will give you. Okay, being 5'7", weighing 100 pounds, and fitting in a size 2 dress is absolutely overrated. Take it from me. That's a fact. Okay, it's very overrated. So stop pressuring yourself. Okay, it seems to me that a lot of times we feel like we're never happy with the way we look. Right? We're never happy. We always see a picture of ourselves and we say, oh, that picture makes my nose look too big. Oh, that picture makes me look so fat. We're never happy, right? Why are we never happy? I don't know. We should value ourselves as much as God values us. We should be happy with the way we look. Okay, we're very blessed, and sometimes we don't count our blessings. I'll tell you guys another story. Someone was telling me that in her high school, there was this beautiful cheerleader. Beautiful. She was head of the cheerleading team. She went out with all the guys. She was obviously very popular. And, you know, the girl who's telling the story, of course, is, you know, your typical Egyptian, you know, didn't go out with anybody, led a very quiet life, stayed home on Fridays and just watched TV, you know, typical. And what the girl told her one day was, I envy you. And the Egyptian Coptic girl said, what? You envy me? Why would you envy me? You're the one that has it all. She said, no. You think I have it all? I envy you. Look at your relationship with your family. You seem like you have such a close, loving family. Look how stable your life is. I don't have any of that. And so I want you guys to always count your blessings. Sometimes you have more than you realize. Sometimes when we don't accept the way we look, we end up doing things, unfortunately, that hurt our bodies. I know you guys are familiar with eating disorders called anorexia and bulimia. I'm not sure if you could read the words on the screen. I think that you can. This picture says, I think I look perfect, but everyone else cries when they hug me. This is a very serious problem that happens when people just don't accept the way that they look. These people, unfortunately, do need help. This is considered a mental illness. It's estimated that 8 million people have an eating disorder. Of course, the majority of them women, 7 million women, because we're just much more self-conscious than men will ever be. And we have to know that half of all Americans will actually know someone with an eating disorder. Maybe you guys know someone with an eating disorder. These people need help. You have to get them to seek help. Okay? This is considered a mental disorder. And unfortunately, the scary part is eating disorders have the highest rate of death of any mental illness. So many of these people die very, very young. And we've heard about some of the actresses that have died very young because of these disorders. So if you do know someone, please have them seek help. It can kill them. Taking care of God's body. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this. There are a couple of verses I'm going to mention today, but there are two what I consider take-home verses. I want us to leave here with these two verses implanted, memorized. If I run into you later on tonight and I ask you the verse, I want you to tell me. If I run into you a week from now, I want you to tell me the verse. If I run into you a year from now, I want you to remember these two verses. So work with me on this. I know you guys have all heard this verse. 1 Corinthians 3:16. Let's say it together. Do you not know that you are the temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? So that's the verse that we want to memorize. The first take-home verse for today that we will have implanted by the end of this session. Okay? We have to remember that we have these bodies out on loan. God loans them to us on day one, and He wants it back on day, whatever it is, the final day, okay? We have these bodies out on loan. The same condition we get them in, the same condition we need to give them back. So we have to take care of them. We are going to have these bodies after the resurrection. We will have these bodies, but they will be glorified bodies. So we will see these bodies again, and that's why we have to take care of them. So please, guys, take care of your body. Take care of your Porsche, your Lamborghini, your Ferrari, whatever you want to call it, take care of it because it will be inspected upon return, okay? Always remember that your body is the temple and it will be inspected. We get it like this, we want to return it like this. We don't want to return it like that, okay? So take good care of your body. And that includes many, many things. One of the things is tattoos, for example. I personally am not a fan of tattoos whatsoever. I think they look horrible. I can't even stand going to the beach anymore and seeing people just coated in them from head to foot, okay? I just don't get it. I don't know why they do it to their bodies. It's painful, and I just don't think it's attractive at all. And I'll tell you guys, I know a lot of people who do them, and unfortunately, they realize later what? They made a mistake. We had two girls in our own church, one who was in high school, and she did it with her father. Her father gave her permission, and she went and got like a huge cross on her arm. Huge. I mean, huge. And then a couple of years later, she decided, wow, I really don't like something that big on my arm. I want to have it removed. And unfortunately, you spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars and many, many hours trying to remove it. It's much, much harder, if you guys don't know, to remove a tattoo than to put it on. And unfortunately, a lot of people realize it too late. So again, I've seen this with many, many different people. They regret it later on. Just a few years later, they're like, what was I thinking? And unfortunately, at that point, like even after all those sessions and all that money that you put to get it off, it never really completely goes away. You always see a little bit left over. So don't do it, guys. And just think how you want to look on your wedding day in your beautiful white gown. A lot of times you don't want to envision any of that ink all over your body. So always just think ahead.